to episode 8 of From the Source podcast. And today we're going to be talking about a question that people have given to me recently is about heart rate zones. So I'm no scientist, but I'm going to briefly go into kind of what I look for, how I train and stuff like that. So we're going to be discussing like what is heart rate training, and this isn't something that people may or may not do. They might just go off pacing training and stuff like that. So this is another alternative. So what is heart rate training? Understanding the 5 different heart rate zones, how to find like your zone, the power of what you'll hear people talk about of like the power of the zone 2 training, and briefly, and I mean briefly, just how to structure a week using these heart rate zones. Before we start, I'd love to know what people's thoughts are in the comments on what they think heart rate training is, and if it's just kind of you're running and when your heart feels like it's blowing, that's kind of when you stop. So I'd be interested to know. But in general, the heart rate training is based on your actual effort, a percentage of your effort, rather than focusing on just your pace and stuff like that. So if you've got like a smartwatch, you'll be able to set it to just look at your heart rate zones. And hopefully by the end of this, you can go onto your own apps on your phone and stuff and set your heart rate zones and make that training specific. Because in a way, the watches will do most of the work for you. It's not like you've got to hook yourself up to a machine after you're training, or whilst you're training and you're basically just using your watch to help you. So it's based on your effort and not just your pace or your distance. And as you get better at running, you'll combine kind of all 3 of them into your training, and that's what you'll focus on, and that's where you'll be able to look at your VO2 max and go into a lot more detail, like your lactate threshold and everything else. It gets a bit more complicated, but if you're just starting off, heart rate is a great one, because you'll start running, you'll think, God, I'm blowing out my arse. And you actually will look at your watch and your heart rate's like 180, which is way, way too high if you're doing like a zone 2. So you're never actually going to get better at running, because your heart rate will be so high at the start that you'll kind of turn yourself off training, because you'll think, God, it's just so hard. So heart rate's a good one just to look at when you're starting, really. So it helps you to like kind of run smarter than harder. And when you are doing those harder training sessions, you'll actually be more productive when you're doing that. So it makes your workouts a lot better and a lot more effective. And you work out that you can't do, if you wanted to do a 15k, you can't be doing it at 180 beats per minute for 15k if you've never trained before. So that's when, like we talk about later on, the zone 2 being like the golden line for actually getting faster at longer distances, which seems odd, but it actually works. It's weird. So it's also a good tool for doing heart rate training. It's a great tool to notify yourself on like if you're doing any overtraining, or the other way of how you're tracking your actual progress. Because the idea is that, which I'll talk about later on, but in the zone 2s, your heart rate's meant to, usually they say between like 140 and 155. So it's good to track your progress. And the idea is that, say if you're just starting off and you're running a 630k pace, which you're able to keep your heart rate in that zone, that's perfect. But then the fitter you get, you'll be able to run quicker at the same heart rate. And that'll be a good indication of like your fitness and your progress and stuff. So I know that's a bit brief on like heart rate training and stuff. And I'm kind of, on a side note, would love to know from people if they want me to, instead of briefly going over these areas, I'm more than willing to like go into like full on research about it and talk about heart rate training, for example, as one whole episode, like what is heart rate training, go into more of the science of it. But I didn't want to kind of blow people's minds with it. I'm trying to just simplistically talk about it. 5 heart rate zones, and they're really easy to remember because they're just called zone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So zone 1 is very light. So that's your mainly it should be like your walking pace. So if you listen to this now, it'll be a good indication of what you'll be able to find out what zones you're actually running in pretty much without even checking your watch or having a watch for the heart rate, really. So active recovery, like walking pace, zone 1, like pretty light. Zone 2 is the sweet spot, the easy conversational pace. And that's the one that is literally going to build you that massive solid foundation of that aerobic capacity that you need for the running, for the long distances, or just even the short distance. You're just getting that engine used to consuming oxygen. And a good indication of what your zone 2 pace is you pretty much should be able to have a conversation like I'm having now whilst running. So if you go out now and you're talking like that to your mates whilst you're running, I don't know what zone that would be, but it's definitely not a zone 2. It's too quick. So you might seem a bit crazy going out, but try and talk to yourself and have a conversation. That is your zone 2 pace loosely, without going into like your heart rate and stuff. Great zone to be in, great one for training, great one for just like jogging around with your mates and stuff. You'll get further distances doing that. And that's what I was saying at the start is if you're doing a 15k and you think it's slow, like you're doing your zone 2, but you're still struggling, it's still actually too quick. And that might be hard for people to hear at the start because you always want to progress and be better quickly. But actually, if you just stuck at it and slowed it down for like 2 or 3 weeks, you actually would get a lot better, a lot faster. And like I said, you will just turn yourself off if you're just hammering it all the time. Zone 3, bit of a moderate pace. It's kind of in the middle. It's a pace that you couldn't run the entire 15k at that pace, but it's not enough to cause you to stop. But it's not hard enough that you're actually sprinting. And if you're new to running, you probably won't understand that zone as much, but it's kind of that near the threshold, but it's like I can hold on. So you could do like quite a quick 10k, but it wouldn't be like a PB pace, really. Your zone 4 is your threshold work. So that is those tempo runs you're doing in the week. That's where it's like short, sharp. So you'll be doing like, say, 2 to 5 minutes at that pace, more of an interval type pace, and then dropping back off into a zone 2, back to zone 4. So it's hard, but you're not like flat out. But this zone 4 is increasing your lactate tolerance. So for anyone who doesn't know, lactate is the I was going to say a hormone. It's lactic acid anyway, that basically initiates cramp or the feeling of cramp, which then pulls oxygen out of your muscles really, and then you struggle to work at that rate. So then pretty much you stop loosely. So doing more efforts in that zone 4 will increase your tolerance to that lactate level, so you'll be able to train harder, faster, for longer. So if you're doing a marathon, you'll be able to run quicker and stuff. So it's a good zone to train in, but it's not something you do a lot per week, maybe 2 times a week if you're doing a proper plan, because it does take it out of you. And then your zone 5 is like very hard, but that's your sprint level intensity. So that's maybe your 200s flat out, your 400s flat out, but you're having a good rest in between. So depending on the distance that you're sprinting at dictates the length of rest you have. So over 200, if it's flat out, you might go for like between 1 and 3 minutes rest, let your body fully recover, and you should be able to hammer them every single time. So it boosts your power and it boosts that like top end speed, and it gets your body used to what that quick speed actually feels like. But you don't do them very often as well, because they take it out of your body. So most of your weekly training is done kind of in that zone 2 zone. And then you just add in now and again. So the best way to kind of find your zones out, the most accurate way, and if you've got any pals that work at university that fancy letting you drop by and have blood tests and run on treadmills and stuff, that would be the best way. But I don't know many people that have got that capability, and I don't know many people that work at unis to let me do that. So a smartwatch, hook it up to a running chest strap, which you'll see more of the pros wear. And then, for example, on my watch, the Chorus watch, you can do I don't know what they call it actually. I think it might be an FTP test, and it'll initiate a test on your watch. So it'll tell you to run at different paces and different threshold and hold on to them and stuff. And then from there, it loosely but more accurately than just guessing will tell you your zone. So it'll find out your threshold pace. And then when I go on my watch and set a workout, I can say, I want to run a zone 2 today. So it already works out my max heart rate percentage and puts that for a zone 2. And then I do that workout at that. So then likewise, if it's tempos and stuff, it'll work out the percentage. And then so you know what zones you're running in. And if you, after you run, you're looking at your zones, you're like, right, maybe it was meant to be a zone 2, but I creeped into zone 3, or actually I took it a lot easier than I thought I was meant to do, and did it more in a zone 1. So it's good for that. So that's probably the best way on the public market, where you'll be able to find out your heart rate zones. A simple method is 220 beats per minute minus your age. And then from that, I've not actually made any notes of this, but then from that, if you just Google it, 220 minus your age is your max heart rate. So mine would be about 188, I think. 189, not 32 yet, but yeah, 189. And then a percentage of that, you work out that percentage, and then you can work out your zone 2, 3, 4, and then you can manually program that into your watch if you want. However, that is loosely based on, like, say, the average male and average female. And I've done a lot of running and fitness before that. So whatever that is as a percentage, 189 for my zone 2 loosely might not actually be my zone 2, because I might actually be fitter than those zones. So I won't take that as gospel. But like I said, apps, you can get apps on your phone which will work it out. Obviously, your smartwatch will be able to work it out and calculate the zones. But you'll have to probably, I still tweak it with my Cora, so you have to tweak it a little bit. Because my threshold says, like, you'll probably see on your watches about, like, your race predictor on Strava, for example, it'll say, like, this is what you could run a 5K in. I'm pretty much usually able to run faster than what the predictor is. And likewise, when it sets it for, like, your threshold pace on Coros, you can actually run quicker than that. So it says my threshold's like 435, but I can actually run a threshold at like 350. So it's not completely accurate, so you have to tweak it. But like I said, the best way to do it is just go to a university, get pally with a professor and just get it tested there. But you can actually pay privately to go to these kind of like smaller clinics. If any of you follow like High Rocks and stuff, Jake did, and Michael Sandbach and stuff, they go to like specific clinics and stuff. I'm pretty sure Jake does it through Red Bull, but there is the clinics out there that'll test your blood and stuff like that, so you'll be able to work it all out for you. So if you're kind of new to the running scene, which I think with this podcast has been actually quite a lot of new people come into the podcast, especially on TikTok, that are quite new to running. So this is a loose plan to kind of increase your speed, get better at distances. If you're just starting off as like a pure beginner, this might be too intense. I've spoken on previous episodes, maybe just running like 2 or 3 times a week, but this plan would still work. I'm all about like jumping in the deep end, and it's going to hurt regardless, so you might as well make it hurt earlier and just get it out of the way. So Monday is a zone 2 recovery run. So that seems quite strange when your first run's like a recovery run, but the Monday on the second week will be, you would have done a full week, so you won't have, well, you will actually be sore. So your zone 2 on the Monday is a recovery run. So zone 2 recovery run. Tuesday, zone 4, which is like speed intervals. So a really good interval session is 8 400s or 8 200s. I like to do, it's kind of a set 8 400s. Well, the set is 1 400 between like a 4 and a 430 pace into no rest, into a 200 flat out, rest for 3 minutes, and then do that 8 times. That's really good because you end up building up a decent speed, and then you think, right, I've got to put the hammer down and then go again. So that's a really good one. Wednesday is your rest or your zone 2 walk. So great if you've got like a dog or anything, or active rest is like kind of stretching at home, not just kind of sat in your arse doing nothing. Thursday, zone 3 is your tempo. So that's a good one, is 4-5 minutes. So you'll run, say, 5 minutes on your threshold pace, your tempo pace, sorry, and then 5 minutes off, which is just like back to a zone 2, just a little, basically not a walk, and then into another 5 minutes and repeat that. So that's a good one. You can start off at 2 minutes. Some people do 2 minutes. Some people do it based off distance. It's whatever kind of works for you. I kind of mix it up, really. Friday is a bit of a strength training session. So that could be upper that week. It could be lower. It could be just dependent on like how your body feels. You feels like your knees are getting hammered. So you want to train your quads a bit more to get stronger, your glutes and stuff, or maybe just like an ab session, but some form of strength. And then this can be switched. So either Saturday or a Sunday, you do a long zone 2 run. So that's just keeping that heart rate between 145, 155 and just run. So don't look at the time. Don't worry about the distance. Just run for, say you want to go for like 2 hours, run for 2 hours, hour out, hour back, done. And then each week, try and just run a little bit further than that, but don't put yourself out of that zone, if that makes sense. I think it'll naturally happen that you'll get quicker on those zone 2 run-ins because of all the other training you're doing. Not because you've been able to run further on that Sunday because you've pushed the last 2K. And I'm guilty of that. I just get bored and I just think, I've run for like 2 hours. I wonder how quick I could actually just hammer this last 2K home. And I do it and I'm like, pretty decent, but I don't know, I kind of just chuck away the last bit of the run, but that's just me. And then, so if it's Saturday or the Sunday, kind of rest, active rest, or just some light training. That could be like a light strength training session again, or just like a stretch and a sauna and just a chill out and ready for the week again. So that's kind of loosely a plan. That's probably similar to what I go off now. Looking at it, it's pretty similar, to be fair. I focus and make sure those like zone 3 and zone 4s are like really intense. That's what I aim for. So that's how I would structure a running plan. I wouldn't say, like I said, I wouldn't structure that completely like that if you're a complete beginner, but I would take out some of those. So I would just make sure you're training like 3 times a week. So one of them's a long zone 2. And when I say long zone 2, I don't want you to be put off and think it's got to be a half marathon. It's whatever your version of a long run is. So the furthest you've ever run's 5K in one go. But as you're getting better with your training, say push it to like 8K. Don't triple it. So I do a zone 2, and then 1 week I'd pick either to do a tempo or like a speed session. Pick one. And then the other one do a strength training, and then do like 2 or 3 weeks of that. And then after that, add in another session and then build it up from that. A lot of people just start from nothing and then just ramp it straight up. So please give that, or if you've not used like a structured running plan before, please give that a go and let me know what you feel like. If you're currently training a lot, please let me know like what your session is. I'm more than happy to just kind of share my running plan. It's more of a marathon plan now. Well, it is a marathon plan. And please let me know how you're getting on with like your running journey, your fitness journey, whatever you want to call it. We've got the Run Club group on Strava. People can post on there and comment and, get people talking on there. Maybe get a few tips on like what people are doing, how people go about their heart rate zones and how they've worked them out. Maybe everyone can encourage everyone to realize that zone 2 is like the best zone to run in overall. And then just adding in a few speed sessions will actually increase how well you're able to run and how confident you are on your feet, really, because most of it is just like time on your feet, just getting your body used to just running, which is weird because you can run to, say, the shop or run for the bus, but to run for ages is an actual challenge in itself. So please go out there and do a full run. It's, Sunday today when I'm filming this. Obviously it'll come out Monday, but like this week, start a zone 2, start a long run, stick to like a plan for a few weeks and kind of watch the results, happen. And you'll see them on your Strava or your smartwatches before you'll physically feel like you're getting any better. So yeah, please let me know. Anyone got any questions? Anyone want to comment, ask me anything, then please do. If not, please like, share, comment if you're watching on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram. And apart from that, I'll see you on the next one.